we'll go ahead and get started. So again, thank you all for joining us today. My name is Eric Bailey. I'm going to be the host for today's Forage Livestock Town Hall meeting. My co-host is Jim Humphrey. We are coming to you live via Zoom, but we're also simulcasting on the MU Extension Integrated Pest Management YouTube page. So those of y'all that are joining us on YouTube, welcome to the Forage Livestock Town Hall. Thanks for joining us. Today's agenda, we're going to have a weather report from Dr. Pat Guinan, and then we're going to do an interview with Stacy Davies, the co-owner of Missouri Prime Beef Packers. So for those of y'all that are new, the way we're going to do this is that once we ask Stacy a few questions.
Were you aware? A lot of people aren't. Pleasant Hope.
Yeah. So we're if y'all would go ahead and mute yourselves for just a minute, let us get through this, and we'll get going here. So when we open the floor up for questions later on in the presentation, there's a number of different ways that you can ask the questions. You can either unmute yourself and ask them directly, or you can also put the questions in the chat function on Zoom if you're in Zoom. You can do that one of two ways. You can either ask it to the whole group, or you can ask them directly to ask questions here. So my co-host Jim Humphrey has changed his name to Ask Questions Here. If you want the question to be anonymous or something along those lines, then go ahead and direct message Ask Questions Here, and only the moderator will see your questions. So with that, let's go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Guinan for this week's weather report.
Sounds good. Thank you, Eric, and good afternoon, everyone. I'll get right into it. Well, we've had a pattern change since we last visited last week. It's more of a summer-like pattern. So it's and precipitation. It's been a little bit wetter as well. I thought since we've now entered the third week of May, I thought I'd look at some of the precip totals and patterns that have set itself up this month across Missouri so far. And in the upper left, these are month-to-date radar estimates, and you can see in those shades of reds and oranges, that's where we've seen the heaviest precip for the month so far. Anywhere from 4 to 5 inches of rain are common in west central parts of southwest Missouri, and then a little bit of a corridor that extends up to just little section north central, north of Boone County to near the Quincy area. In regard to departure from normal for the first 3 weeks of May, the upper right map shows those greens. That's above normal precip for the first 3 weeks. The yellows are some of the drier locations, and I put drier in parentheses. East central sections around the St. Louis metro area, parts of north central Missouri, they've seen lighter amounts. But again, May is climatologically our wettest month. And so even though they might be indicative of a below normal precip, that doesn't mean we're looking pretty good in regard to moisture. If anything, it's surplus across especially western parts and southwestern Missouri. So we're in good shape in regard to water supplies, both below the ground as well as surface water supplies. Here, this table on the bottom shows some of the highest and lowest totals so far for the first 3 weeks of May. Those blues are indicative, really matching up nicely with the radar estimates. You can see in southwest Missouri, almost over 9 inches of rain. In Vernon County right here, you can see right near Nevada, just in the east-northeast of that, they've had some big totals, as well as Lawrence County. In this area, they've had over 7 inches. In Greene County, parts of southern Polk County, some big totals. And also right just east of Kansas City in eastern Jackson County, we've had reports of nearly 7 inches of rain for the first 3 weeks. And the lower totals here, again, you can see for the first 3 weeks, the lowest total I could find was an actual rain gauge report in Franklin County, right here around the Washington area. They had just about a little over 1.5 inches of rain during the first 3 weeks. And again, much of around the St. Louis metro area, generally 1.5 inches to 2 inches. Here in Caldwell County and parts of northwest Missouri, some lighter totals. But again, we're looking good in the moisture category. If anything, it's a surplus situation, a little bit too muddy in parts of the state. Soil temperatures have reacted nicely with these warmer temperatures over the past week. These are the 2-inch soil temperatures under bare soil on the left over the past week, and they've warmed up about 5 degrees. They're generally running in the low to mid 60s statewide, some upper 60s here in the Missouri Boot Heel. This middle image shows the red line, which are the over the past couple weeks, what those soil temperature trends have been like. The blue line is the 20-year average, and you can see with these warmer temperatures that how they've been increasing. So as of yesterday, they were right about average. And then I got a snapshot about 20 minutes ago of the soil temperatures across the state. They're generally running in the upper 60s, lower 70s. A little bit more sunshine in eastern Missouri, and that's why we're seeing those soil temperatures running in the mid 70s in parts of east central Missouri. Well, things are going to change. We do have some precipitation chances today, most likely across western Missouri, but we have an area of high pressure in the southeastern U.S. that's forecast to strengthen and start to have impacts on our area here in Missouri. Of course, high pressure, we have the circulation that brings in that rich Gulf of Mexico moisture, but at the same time, it sort of suppresses any type of shower and thunderstorm activity. And so those rainfall chances are going to be decreasing starting tomorrow. Little to no chances across the state for the weekend. So some drying opportunities, much warmer conditions. I talked about summer-like weather. We're going to see high temperatures going into the weekend, actually starting tomorrow and into the weekend in the 80s. It's not out of the question. We can be in mid to upper 80s. So that's more of a June, July type sort of temperature pattern. We're going to be running above normal, and that's going to persist through much of next week. So it definitely looks like some nice weather on the horizon with drier conditions, warmer temperatures as we go through the weekend and into next week. This is, I put up 2 scenarios of what they're anticipating for precipitation over the next week. And on the left, this is the forecast over the next couple days. I would say the majority of this forecast is actually anticipated to occur over the next 24 hours. You see a deep, rich fetch of Gulf of Mexico moisture, about 150-mile wide corridor. There we have an instability axis that's tapping into that moisture and squeezing out some showers and isolated thunderstorms. Highest likelihood of the heaviest precip in far western Missouri, you see anywhere from 1/2 to 1 inch. As you go east, we're more under the influence of that high pressure system in the southeastern U.S., so much lighter amounts are anticipated over the next couple days. On the right, that's our next better chance of precipitation statewide for Missouri. That will be mid to late next week. And so this is a forecast from Tuesday morning next week through Thursday morning. You can see that system impacting much of Kansas as much as 1/2 to 1.5 inches of rain. That 1/2 inch contour extends into about the northern half of Missouri, lighter amounts in southeast Missouri. So there will definitely be some more drying opportunities across southern and southeast Missouri over the next 7 days. But another system will be impacting us mid to late next week, and that could translate into Memorial Day weekend as well. This is a forecast for next week, looking at the 6 to 10 day outlook. This is May 25th through the 29th. Those various shades of orange are indicative of a likelihood of above normal temperatures. The deeper that shade, the more higher the confidence is that this forecast will verify. So again, with high temperatures in the 80s this weekend, it does look like those 80s are going to continue through much of next week with these higher temperatures. And this is something we need to keep an eye on. Of course, we're already wet across much of the state. We're talking about that system impacting us mid to late week, and perhaps maybe even into Memorial Day weekend. So pretty much a large, deep shade of green impacting much of Missouri. So it does look like there's pretty good confidence that we're going to see a breakdown of that high pressure system. It'll retreat more to the southeast, put us more into an unstable weather pattern, very summer-like with high temperatures in the 80s and some pretty good chances of precipitation as we get later on to next week and Memorial Day weekend. And so, Eric, that's a weather report. Thank you so much. I'll hand it back over to you.
Pat, thanks for the timely information as always. Are there any questions for Pat before we move on?
There's none at this time, Eric.
Okay, so if y'all will just bear with me for one quick second, I'm going to get our guest added here. We're going to do a little split screen deal, a little different than we have done in the past. So Stacy, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and say hello.
Hi, everyone.
Stacy, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to jump on here. So we are broadcasting both to Zoom and to YouTube as well. So we'll have folks in both on both streaming services. So just a quick intro. So Stacy is the co-owner of the new Missouri Prime beef packing plant that has opened recently in Pleasant Hope, Missouri. We are in MU Extension. We are pushing the goal of doubling the economic impact of agriculture in Missouri by the year 2030. And, you know, having value-added beef production facilities, harvesting facilities, I think are really going to go a long way towards helping, you know, achieve that goal. So Stacy, I just kind of want to start off with getting to know you a little better. So what beef industry experiences have led you to co-owning a packing plant in Missouri?
Thanks, Eric, and thanks for this opportunity. Yeah, my background, I'm a cow-calf rancher primarily. Myself and a group of producers in Oregon started a co-op in 1986. I actually became involved in 1988. And as a member of the co-op, we sold branded beef since that time for 30 some years. The transition to Missouri came about. I have 6 sons, 5 of which want to be involved in the business. And my business partner, Derek Thompson, he is in Kansas and he wanted to be in the beef business as well. So we took the energy of my sons and the location of Derek and his company and my experience, and we found the plant in Pleasant Hope, Missouri. It was a pork plant. We converted it to beef, and we harvested the first animals in mid-March. So we're now 2 months in, and we're processing roughly 150 a day right now, with the goal of getting to 500 a day. And the animals, the cattle, the beef will all be branded beef products coming out of that plant. We have brands that we'll be selling, and then we'll be custom harvesting for other folks and their brands.
I see. Well, that's just outstanding. Well, we're sure glad to have you here in Missouri, and glad to hear that y'all are already up to killing 150 head a day. And so I guess my next question is, you know, as this business begins to establish itself and to grow, what does a vibrant Missouri Prime beef packing plant look like in 3 to 5 years from y'all's perspective? What are your kind of your goals, your visions, et cetera, for it in that time frame?
Yeah, within a year, we should be at 500 head a day, and we'll stabilize at that point, and then we'll work on efficiencies within the plant, work on selling the whole carcass, the whole animal for that matter, work on decreasing costs, increasing yields, and fine tuning. So 3 years, probably 500 head a day, and a very efficient process. And 5 years, maybe we go to 700 or 800 a day by 5 years.
Wow, that's outstanding to hear. So I guess my next question is a little bit more about your branded beef programs. Can you tell us a little bit more about the branded beef programs that y'all are operating, and which ones are available to or specific to Missouri?
You bet. And so from a producer standpoint, producers can participate in any of these brands, but the short-term Show Me Beef brand, we rolled that out early this week with Springfield Grocer and Price Cutter in Springfield. Show Me Beef is a product, a brand that the animals never leave the state of Missouri. They're born, fed, processed, and distributed by Missouri companies. Some of the product, of course, will go outside of the state of Missouri to the consumer. Some of it overseas, as well as the neighboring states through the Springfield Grocer. But that program is 100% Missouri. Between those two companies, they'll be using 300 to 400 head a week. So that brand, our goal is to have it be 1 day of production. The next brand is a natural brand, animal welfare certified brand. That program's aimed at Chipotle and Whole Foods. It's there's a lot of certifications required for that brand, and primary customers, it's Flint Hills beef. So a regional brand with customers across the US. And then the third brand I'll mention, well, there's a Grass Valley beef, which is our grass-fed line. And then Kansas Ranch Angus beef, which is an export line for Europe and Asia. So 4 brands that we're focused on, and Missouri producers can participate in all of those. And we need a steady supply of grass-fed, steady supply of show me. The Flint Hills and the Kansas Ranch, because it can be sourced throughout the Midwest, the supply is a little easier for that, but Missouri producers can participate.
I see. So which grocery store is selling show me beef? Just can you say, are you at liberty to say at this point?
Yeah, Price Cutter in Springfield area. And then the food service distributor will be Springfield Grocer or SGC Food Service. And they will distribute in the 4 states, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, and it will be in independent restaurants and meat markets throughout that area.
Wonderful. That's quite the footprint. My next question is more of a producer focused question. So, Missouri's a number 3 state in terms of cow-calf inventory in the country, yet we only have, I think the latest estimate I saw was under 100,000 head of cattle that are fed in the state. And so, we're just in the beginning of developing a cattle feeding industry in this state. Now, that's not to say that there aren't folks that have been feeding cattle in Missouri and have been shipping them elsewhere, but a producer that's going to work with y'all for the first time, they're going to send y'all fat cattle. Can you give us some information on what they need to know, what they need to do, how to go about doing that? Let's say, let's assume that they're marketing directly to y'all, maybe, and not going through a sale barn and order buyer kind of deal.
You bet. And we want to buy fat cattle. We want them to be high quality beef, fed 150 days or longer. We want them to grade choice and prime. A program is designed to be the culinary quality to be excellent, a high quality product. And if they have the ability to feed them at home, we want a semi-load or more. We'd rather not work with 10s and 20s, maybe a few on the ends, but we want producers that have semi-load or more, and they need to have an EID tag put in their ear before they leave the birth farm, the farm they're born on, and have an affidavit that accompanies them saying they've never left the state of Missouri, that they were born and spent their entire life in the state of Missouri. So, and then rack dopamine free. That's the only technology we don't allow. The cattle can be implanted, they can be fed antibiotics or injected. All technology is available except ractopamine, but certified Missouri. And they just reach out to us, go to our website. There's a contact number there, and Jay Holmes or Andrew Bird will sign them up and put them on the schedule.
Great. Yeah. And so just so that everybody's aware, the Thompson Research Center that is with a part of the University of Missouri, we've harvested 79 head of fat cattle at Missouri Prime since I think the first kill was on the 16th of April. And, the process has gone very smooth. We've gotten along really well. We got our first set killed before the market dropped there in late April, early May. We did really well on them. The second set, I think we harvested in around the 3rd or 5th of May. It's escaping me. We still did well on those as well. And we really appreciate the service that you all provided us, the distance that we didn't have to pay freight on hauling those cattle from Spickard, Missouri to Joslyn or to, Nebraska somewhere. So I can tell you from personal experience that we've had a really great start with Missouri Prime. The University of Missouri has. So thank you for that.
Just to go a touch further, the price on those cattle will be the market price plus 3 cents. So a good premium, 30 to 50 buck premium just on the live weight. And then there is a grid. And so there's a premium for prime and high choice and yield grade 1, 2s, and 3s, and a discount for select and yield grade 4s and 5s.
Perfect. And I can attest. So the last set that we sent to y'all, Stacy, we got $76.03 a head in premiums. So
Terrific.
so those are extra dollars that are going to be in producers' pockets. You know, I'm really excited about that. So the questions are starting to roll in the chat. Do you mind if I open that up and just kind of start firing them away at you, sir?
That would be terrific. Bring them on.
Excellent. Well, that's the spirit. I like that. So the first question is, what can Missouri beef producers do to help support Missouri prime beef packers?
You know, supply cattle, and then talk it up, like the Show Me brand, encourage people to buy it. Help us watch the regulations that might come our way. Packers get blamed for a lot of problems in the industry and the markets and those kinds of things. And as a small packer, we're a little bit afraid that we might get swept up into some regulations aimed at big packers that could hurt us. And so, you know, just be careful of that. We're part of the industry in the state of Missouri. We're servicing niches. A small plant at 500 a day is a really small plant. And so help us on that front. Yeah. And the last one is, if you know of anyone wanting a job, send them our way. We need employees.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know. We'll sure send them your way. Hopefully before too long, we'll be sending some graduates from the University of Missouri out to Mo Prime to work for y'all. So the next question that I've got here is, any breeds Missouri Prime will not take? What about hide color?
No dairy. And we want them to be high quality animals, so fed well. We also will be harvesting cows. So we'll be harvesting some over 30 months for our grinding program. And so Clay Barnhouse in Bolivar is the cattle buyer for the cows, and you can reach out to him if you have cows to sell. We really encourage you to go to the sell barns, and we buy cows through the sell barns. That way everyone's treated fair. But we'll be harvesting over 30 months and just no dairy.
Good deal. So a follow-up question of my own that maybe we might have touched on earlier, but I'm not sure. How many days a week are y'all harvesting cattle right now?
5 days a week.
Okay. So.
And labor shortage being the limiting factor, to be honest with you. Nobody wants to work more than 40 hours a week anymore. So it's hard to work a Saturday.
Hey, I'm kind of impressed that you can find somebody that wants to work 40 hours a week at this point. So
very true. Very true.
Oh, well, there's my politically incorrect statement for the day. So next question. I don't have any more in the chat. Does anybody want to unmute and ask Stacy a question directly?
Hey, Stacy, my name's Derek Brake. I'm another cattle nutritionist at the University of Missouri, and oversee the feedlot up here. I would, if not to get too in the weeds, but I'd be curious. You said 3 cents over market. How do you all calculate your market price? What states are included in your average? And is it last week's or is it the current? I mean, if you wouldn't mind, that'd be great.
And Eric, you received a check, so you might be able to answer that better than me if that grid's in front of you, but
it's not. That's why I was just curious.
But yeah, I think it's a USDA published price, and probably 5 state. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's 5 state USDA previous Friday.
Perfect. Thanks. I was just curious.
But any producer that's interested, we'd be glad to send them that grid, and that's all spelled out at grid.
Stacy, this is Matt Herring. I'm from East Central Missouri, and just wonder what your lead time is to sell a load to you. Do you need to know a week out, a month out? What's your lead time?
You know, a month out, I think, would be a good answer. Really, we want to have producers that are part of the program ongoing, and so we'd schedule you a year out, and would be willing to sign contracts in advance. We have the ability to do a basis contract or a cash contract. So ideally we're, months and months in advance, but right now, if you have cattle available, let us know. We're looking for some more. The brand's grown faster than we expected. And so, but over time, really the ideal would be when they go on feed, contract them with us. That way, where they're going, and we can make sure the affidavits and things are in place and the traceability is in place. So up to a year, ideally no less than when they go on feed. But right now, call us if you have cattle.
Okay, I've got a couple more questions here that have come in on the chat. So the first one is, what's the optimal animal for Missouri Prime? Do you guys kind of have the ideal finished animal?
Yeah. 850 pound, mid choice or higher, yield grade 2 or 3. And breed, we don't restrict on breed. We do have some programs that prefer Angus, and so we need some half Angus cattle, but they can be red or black. They can even be smoky grays or yellows, a Charolais on a red Angus or a Charolais on a black. So.
Okay, here's the next one. Are you concerned about quality and eating experience for your brand sourcing from so many various producers with no set production protocols?
We have Jay Holmes is our director of procurement. He'll inspect the cattle visually live, and even when they go on feed. And so we regulate quality fairly heavily that way. And because they're Missouri sourced and they have an EID tag taking them back to the ranch of origin, we have a pretty good idea where they're coming from. So there is a system in place to give us consistency.
The next question, are the 3 program requirements available online, or do we need to contact y'all directly to get those?
Next Gen Beef Company website would have that available. Next Gen Beef Company, and there's a website for that, or Missouri Prime Beef Packers. The websites will tie together and they are available there. And if you go there and they're not, reach out and we can give them to you. I can real quickly just add that, the Missouri program, Show Me's 3 cents over the market. NHTC cattle for the Kansas Ranch program are $200 a head over the market. And the GAP cattle, Global Animal Partnership cattle for Flint Hills, the base price is $350 a head over the market. Those are the base premiums. The grid is very similar on all 3 brands. And then grass-fed, we have just a set price that we might change once a year or once every 6 months, be a little bit market relevant, but we buy them on the rail for a price, a set price.
Do you have a feel for how many grass-fed animals that y'all are going to kill through that plant, or is that maybe lagging behind the other brands at this point?
No, we've started that program. Currently doing 80 fats and 80 cows a week. That'll grow to 300 fats and 200 cows a week. The Grass Valley brand will both have both fat cattle under 30-month young fat cattle, and then cows for ground beef, and 300 young and 200 old, and that program has started.
Okay, so here's another one. So for producers that would like to supply cattle but are not set up to feed cattle, do you have any plans to try and coordinate a system with a feed yard to feed for multiple producers for one of your programs?
I'll answer that 2 ways. We're looking at an association or co-op of some type, and we're open to producers' input on that to supply for the Show Me brand. Really, that Show Me brand should and does belong to Missouri cattlemen and Missouri consumers. It's a Missouri brand, and we don't feel like we own it. We feel like the Missouri producers should own it. So some type of an association or co-op will be a part of that supply. This Jay Holmes will align cow-calf operators, yearling operators with finishers and help organize that. So number one, where we're headed. Number two, where we're currently at is Andrew and Jay can help you place feeders in finish yards or help you connect with finish yards that will buy your cattle. And we own some of them. We buy some feeders.
No, that's good to know, because certainly I think we're probably more inclined to be set up to background cattle here in the state than maybe finished cattle at this point. But we are building there are a lot of confinement barns going up, particularly in the northern half of the state. So that's good to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, throughout the state, we started with 4 feed yards. We have more than 10 supplying us now, and we get inquiries once a week or more often than that, some weeks. So yeah, that finishing, I mean, Missouri used to finish a lot of cattle. There used to be a lot of cattle finished in Missouri, and it's either under a roof or on pasture. And of course, anyone that's willing to feed them with a self feeder on pasture, those animals easily qualify for the GAP 4 program for Whole Foods. And that's a good premium. So these different programs, I'd encourage you to consider the different programs, and GAP 4 fits in really well with historical Missouri finishing processes.
Where can we find more information about the GAP 4 program? I don't think I'd been familiar with that previously.
So Global Animal Partnership is an animal welfare certification group that is connected to Whole Foods. So you can go on the Global Animal Partnership website. You can go to Next Gen Beef, and I think there's a link. Probably Whole Foods website would have a link back to Global Animal Partnership. Those would be the easiest places. But again, if you reach out to us, we can supply information.
Okay, so more questions, y'all.
Eric, this is Jim. I got one.
Okay.
Stacy, my name's Jim Humphrey. I'm a livestock specialist in northern Missouri. And question I've been asked is, what radius from Pleasant Hope are you buying at sale barns? And I assume the question is related to cows.
You know, because we're not at full production, currently we're, I think, Kingsville and just a handful of yards pretty close to Pleasant Hope is the primary source. But as we ramp up, we'll be needing 200 cows a day, some days 300 cows. So, 1,000 a week. And those cows will be broke into 3 categories. There will end up being cows that are Missouri grown. So we can have lean trimmings, lean beef to blend with our fat trimmings for the Show Me ground beef program. We'll need some grass-fed cows, and then we'll just need some generic cows. So as we need more of the Show Me cows and more of the grass-fed cows, that circle will get larger and larger. One of the reasons we decided that Pleasant Hope was a good place for a beef plant is within 50 miles, we have the Joplin stockyards, the Springfield stockyards, Buffalo stockyards, 5, 6, 7 stockyards that do thousands a week. I think the generic cows, we won't have to go that far.
Thank you.
Well, it looks like the questions are slowing down a bit. So if y'all want to, this is kind of your last chance if you want to ask a question now of Stacy. I value his time, and I really appreciate the letting us put him in the hot seat for 30 minutes already. So why don't we go ahead and get our final questions in so we can let him get back to that important work of harvesting Missouri beef.
If you don't find adequate information on the websites, my email is Davies, SDAVIES, S Davies at mpbeef.com, and send me an email. That's the best way to communicate, and I can connect you to the appropriate folks or answer your questions. We'd love to work with more and more Missouri producers and support the industry. One of the points that I didn't make quite as clearly as I wanted to early on, generally over half of the revenue, if you take wholesale beef prices back to the cow-calf level, the cow-calf level generally gets 40% of the wholesale dollars. The other 60% ends up at the feed yard or the distributor or the packing plant. And so by having the plant in Missouri and now feeding cattle in Missouri, we're going to double the economic footprint of the cattle industry on the animals that go through those brands or those Missouri producers. And so the Show Me brand, they have to stay in the state of Missouri. The other brands, they don't have to, but just for logistics and freight reasons, it makes sense to. So all of those brands are open to Missouri producers, and to keep that economic activity in the state of Missouri, let's line up the supply. We can keep, we can double the impact, more than double the impact of the beef industry in the state of Missouri by harvesting cattle at Pleasant Hope.
Well, that really fits in nicely with Missouri Extension's stated goal of doubling the economic impact. So I'll ask another question. What can the University of Missouri do to help Missouri prime beef packers? We've talked about what producers could do, but what about the university itself?
You already are, and everything from helping us with research and even digging up literature that will support some decisions we have to make, to sending us students, training current employees, supplying us some cattle. There will be times when we're going to want some knowledgeable folks and professionals to come in and look at the QA department or the grader or different departments within the plant. There's a number of things, and just to make everyone aware, the university, both Missouri State and University of Missouri, are helping us already and have been, and we have a number of things in the works. So keep doing what you're doing, and there are a number of ways.
Hey, that's great. Stacy, is it all right if I type your email in the chat so that anybody that didn't happen to write it down?
Yeah, hand it out, please.
Okay.
Do.
All right, perfect. I've got one more question, and I think we'll end off on this one. So you talked about, the labor component. What positions are available right now? What are y'all looking for in terms of prospective employees?
I'm going to broaden this question just a little bit. I see that the cattlemen have asked the government to intervene in the cattle markets because packers are making a lot of money and cattlemen are not. And the reason we're in the situation we're in is demand worldwide is an all-time high. Cattle supplies are abundant, but there's not enough packing capacity to harvest the animals. And the big plants are only running at 80 to 85%. That's a combination of spacing people out because of COVID, people not coming back to work because they're getting the government paychecks, and then just an overall shortage of labor. In the industry, plants are running at 80 to 85% because of lack of labor. So oftentimes people think of packing house labor as just being someone with a knife, either on the kill floor skinning or doing those things, or on the fab side breaking a carcass apart. But we need warehouse people. We need folks that have maintenance skills. We need folks with quality assurance skills and knowledge. Of course, we do need people on the floor as well. We even need management level folks. So there, nearly a third of the jobs are not knife in hand jobs in a plant, and we need people in every department, as does every other plant in America. Wages for workers have been going up across the board, raises of $3 an hour. So Tyson, JBS, Cargill, smaller plants, just immediately giving $3 an hour wage increases, signing bonuses, moving bonuses, retention bonuses, bonuses for attendance, 100% attendance, we pay an extra $1 an hour. So in the industry, there's a shortage in all fronts, and the wages are very competitive now.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So I really appreciate that. Stacy, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. So thank you, sir. I really appreciate your time. Really appreciate the conversation. Really appreciate you all working with the university and harvesting those cattle from Thompson for us. We've had just a wonderful experience so far. So if you get anybody who's asking for someone to vouch for you, I'll just send them my way. We'll be glad to tell prospective clients about our experience with you, with your business. So Stacy, that's all I've got. So thank you, sir. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up now.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so that's about all I've got for today. I just want to remind you all again that we have, for those that can't make the live video, we post these on the MUIPM YouTube channel after the presentation is done. So if you couldn't catch it here, you had somebody that wanted to see it but couldn't, this presentation, this whole video will be posted on the YouTube IPM channel. So we really thank you all for joining us today and for joining us over the last 14 months or so that we've been doing these town halls. They've been a really important component of our pivot in the COVID era. So it takes a whole team to make these things happen. And I just want to acknowledge my teammates on this deal before we sign off today. So thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it. And we'll be back here again next Thursday at noon. So have a good afternoon, everyone.